Hi, this is Scott Von Heldt, otherwise known as SVH, and I'd like to welcome you to the very first YRG Guitar webinar. We're starting a new webinar series here to kind of go through a lot of the functions and features of the YRG Gen 2. And so we're going to start off today with some real basic things. I want to let everybody know that we're going to be answering questions at the end of the webinar, so we want to make sure that you log on to either Facebook or Twitter or right here through live stream. You can also submit your questions. So be submitting those questions throughout the webinar, and at the very end we'll go over all those and kind of give you some answers and that kind of thing. We're also going to be giving away a copy of Guitar Pro, the LE version, which is a really great notation and transcription tablature software that you can use. Works great with the YRG guitar, so we're going to be giving that away, and I'll have some more details at the end of the webinar on how to submit for that. Some of the topics that we're going to cover in this particular webinar is kind of what is MIDI, what are some of the pros and cons of MIDI for guitarists, what are some of the limitations and things that we have to take a look at and factor in. Points for guitarists to kind of keep in mind as they jump into the MIDI world and discover what playing MIDI guitar is kind of like. We're going to go over connectivity, how it works, a lot of the main features and functions, built-in sounds from the built-in synth module. I'm going to explain the buttons and things like that, how those work. We're going to talk a little bit about the tap and slide functions and how those really aid your technique. Talk a little bit about fret select, chorus, and transpose, some of the features of the Gen 2 there. And we're going to set up a custom preset. I'm going to show you how to go through and customize the layers of the presets and things like that, and show you how to do custom tunings, drop tunings, and save your presets and things like that for later. So we're going to cover a lot in this webinar and this episode. And as we move along with this series, we're just going to cover a lot more, and we will get into a lot more in-depth discussion about each particular facet that we speak about today, but this is going to give you a really great overview of the YRG Guitar Gen 2. So starting off, I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about MIDI, about guitar synths and MIDI technology and kind of where it's come from, where it's evolved over the years, how it's evolved, and kind of where it's brought us to today with the YRG guitar. There's really three main components or three types of technology used when you're talking about a guitar synth or MIDI guitar, which would be segmented frets, pitch detection, and mechanical switches. And these all work in different ways, and I'll kind of go through and explain those. So starting with segmented frets, you saw this was kind of like one of the first guitar synth type products out on the market. The Synth-Axe kind of comes to mind. That was one of the first things out there. And basically what a segmented fret does is it takes the fret and cuts it into 6 sections, and then you press on those segments of the fret with your string and so forth, and that basically creates the trigger or the mechanism that will trigger the sound. And the problem with this, or the big con to this, was that basically it was very costly to manufacture, still very costly to manufacture, because it takes an incredible amount of precision to really get all the little variances worked out. You've got these segmented frets that have to be cut perfectly, and then everything has to be laid in on the fretboard, has to be perfectly straight, and you have to have the strings aligned just right, and any kind of little buzz or fret buzz or hum or anything like that can really wreak havoc on the signal and that type of thing. So those are something that kind of limits segmented fret technology, but again, a great starting point. Very expensive when it first came out, still very expensive today. I think a lot of the segmented fret technology instruments that are out there are in the several $1,000 range. So that's just one of the drawbacks of that. But still, a great starting point and something that really paved the way for the technology to come. Which would be pitch detection. Pitch detection is something that you'll probably see most commonly used in just about, not all of, but most or the majority of the MIDI guitar oriented things that you see today will use some sort of pitch detection. And it works great in terms of it gives you a more real feel. You can do bends and things like that you can't normally do with some sort of a switch or button type controller. But there's always some sort of latency. There's always latency, especially in the lower strings. When you get into the lower frequencies and lower pitches and things like that, the rate of the frequency, there's always going to be some sort of delay. Typically, it's going to be about a 12 millisecond delay that you're going to experience with just about any kind of pitch detection device. And when you factor in a computer, even the fastest, MacBooks out there will give you about a 10 millisecond delay. Things like that. And once you hook up to your DAW or VST or your sound module, there's a little connectivity delay there. All of that adds up, and every millisecond counts when you're talking about MIDI guitar. So the tracking and things like that, to avoid latency, you want every little millisecond squashed out that you can. So that's one kind of drawback of pitch detection, is that there's always that inherent little bit of latency. But again, it's come a long way. It's gotten a lot better over the years, and definitely is probably one of the more predominant technologies that you'll see out there in regards to MIDI or guitar synth. Mechanical switches would be the next type, and this would be basically kind of like an individual button that you'd have at each fret. And what that does is it gives you a lot better tracking capability, because it's basically like using a keyboard MIDI controller. But the problem is, it's kind of like using a keyboard MIDI controller. Now you're pushing buttons again, and it's almost like pressing keys in the form of a button with your fretting hand, and it's really not a natural feel or flow for guitarists. So if you're playing scales or certain chord forms and things like that, it may just feel a little unnatural. But again, the tracking is better, and it's a lot more like using a keyboard controller. So those are really the three main types of guitar synth or MIDI guitar oriented technologies that are out there. And the UROC guitar is a little bit different, and the reason for that being, it uses fretboard sensor technology, which is kind of a really unique thing, because if you look at the UROC guitar, you look at the neck, it looks like a real neck with strings and frets, and if you touch it with your hand, it feels like a real neck with strings. It feels like you have strings here. Each one of these sensors is shaped like a string, feels like a string, and when you press down on it, you get that instant connection and that very, very minimal time frame of latency at all. And that's really what's the great thing about it. It's so natural, and it feels like you're playing a guitar. So for a guitar player, there's always been a lot of factors and things that kind of either shy you away from MIDI guitar or make us kind of go, well, man, I tried this and it doesn't track great, or things like that. It's really an adjustment. There's a lot of different things to take into consideration. One of the beauties of playing guitar is the tone that you get from your instrument or your amp, or the way that you're playing finesses certain little nuances out of the notes and out of the music. That's one of the real joys of guitar. There's things that we love. You got your Prize Les Paul that you plug in your Prize Marshall amp, and you dial in your tone just right, and you play it, and that sound is just something that strikes a chord within you, and it's something that you can't replace. Same if you have like a favorite Strat or Tele or something that just has that silky smooth clean sound, or really bright or warm tone. That's something that you grow to love and you embrace, and it becomes part of you and your playing and your style as a guitar player, your identity as a guitar player. And I think that for some reason that scares people away a lot when it comes to the realm of MIDI. This isn't to replace your Les Paul or those things. You still want that. You want that connection and that closeness with your prized instruments and things like that. This is just another tool. This is another tool for expression, another instrument that's really going to open your creativity and give you the chance to use sounds and instruments and things like that that really have only been available for keyboard players. For years, all these sound libraries and synth modules and things like that have all been really geared towards keyboard players who can push a lever and it triggers the sound and it works very good. There's still latency with keyboard controllers. You're always going to experience a little bit of latency in that type of situation. But again, that technology has been there for them for years, and we've just stood by with our effects pedals and things like that and gone, well, I can do this. Listen to this cool reverb or this cool tremolo, or I can use a wah pedal, and those types of things are great. But this really opens the whole spectrum of sound, really limitless sound possibilities once you dive into using MIDI. So those are some things to keep in mind. A real important thing to think of and remember when you're using a MIDI guitar controller or a MIDI guitar or MIDI in general is you got to think like the instrument that you're going to be playing. For instance, pardon me, if you put on a flute patch and you have the flute patch going and you say, all right, I'm going to play Eruption on a flute patch and it's going to sound awesome. Well, it might sound pretty good, but it's probably not going to sound like a guitar playing Eruption with a flute sound, because MIDI sound banks, libraries, they're realistic. The sounds are very true to the velocity and the breathiness and all the different nuances that go into getting that exact sound and tone out of that instrument. All is programmed into these sound banks. So when you go to use a flute sound, for instance, there's that breathiness and airiness and things like that, and you can't two-hand tap and hammer on and pull off on a flute and things like that. So those types of techniques might not translate the greatest on a flute patch. So a lot of times you'll hear people say, oh, I've tried this MIDI thing and, it's cool, but there's something wrong with it. It doesn't track right, and that's not the case. These instruments and this technology for years has been tracking really good. But you have to adjust your thinking and you have to adjust the way that you approach playing each instrument. They're all played differently. There's, certain nuances to how they're played, and you really have to kind of open your mind and think that way in terms of what the instrument is that you're playing, how it's played, what would this what would a flute player do, how would they approach this, what type of things would they go for. That'll really greatly expand your technique and your creativity, and it'll also just kind of make you it jogs your brain and makes you go in different directions and think differently and approach things differently and try different techniques. And that's one of the beauties of the U-Rock guitar, is that it really gives guitar players the opportunity to use sounds and instrumentation that they've never used before and really open that sound palette and creativity. And I really admire people like Trent Reznor and Danny Elfman and guys that have honed their craft as a piano player and then use the technology around the instrument that they have to really add the color and the layers and the moods and all those types of things that they do for their music. And for guitar players, they have the ability to do that now, and you can really layer all these different sounds and all these different instruments and go into places that you've never gone before as a guitarist. And that's really the beauty of this. So with that being said, you want to keep in mind that you do have to kind of approach it a little bit differently. And once you do that, you're really going to get a lot of joy out of playing it, because it's a really amazing instrument and tool for your creativity. Pardon me. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the connectivity, how it works, some of the features and functions, and kind of dive into that. So without further ado, here's the U-Rock Guitar Gen 2. When you first turn it on, make sure I got my volume up. It's going to jam out and play a cool little song here. All right, it should. And then, okay, going through some of the functions and everything that we got going on here. Basically, we've already talked a little bit about the neck here and the fretboard sensor technology. So again, you have that real feel with your frets and so forth and so on here. Going into the next area here are pickup and the strings. The strings here are real steel strings, so you get that real feeling of playing the strings. The pickups here pick up the sound from the strings here, and in further episodes we'll kind of get into customizing kind of the way the pickup works, the sensitivity, velocity, connectivity, all those types of things. So that we'll get into that more in future episodes. Okay, going on here to the next part, kind of looking at our connectivity here. We've got your on-off switch here. You've got MIDI out 5-pin. You've got your USB. You've also got a 1/4 inch, and then you've got 2 1/8 inch, which is an in and an out. The in and out is really great because you can plug in an iPod or some sort of device like that and then use a headphone output to jam along with that type of thing. You got your 1/4-inch output, so all your internal guitar sounds, synth sounds that are in the synth module inside can all be sent to your amp or your recording device or interface via the 1/4-inch. And then you can also do USB MIDI. So basically you can just connect your UROC guitar to your computer via MIDI and you're completely, or I'm sorry, via USB, and it'll make that MIDI connection with your software. Really simple plug and play capability there. Also, you can use the MIDI 5-pin out. Just gives you a little different kind of connectivity. One thing I like to mention about this, and one of the beauties of the UROC, is that you can combine these. So you can use the MIDI out, and then you can also use your audio out, your 1/4-inch analog out, and you can blend those. So a lot of times I will take the 1/4-inch out and go into one input on my interface, and then I'll use the MIDI out and blend some sounds from the UROC here, which you can layer sounds. So you can use 2 layered sounds in here plus another sound that you have on your VST or plug-in or whatever the case may be, and layer those sounds together, which is really an amazing thing and gives you that ability to really, again, just kind of expand your musical palette, so to speak. You've got a volume control here, a little jog wheel that you can use for a couple different functions, your whammy bar, and some control up and down buttons here. These will work with like your chorus function and the transpose and some other things what we'll talk about later. And then we'll go over the buttons and things here. I seem to have lost power on this unit for some reason, but we'll go over some of the features here as we're figuring out the power situation here. We've got all the different buttons here: the music, game, open, slide, tap, UROC, guitar, synth, our LED display. We've got our preset up and down buttons, our track button here, our MIDI button, and play and record. So essentially, a lot of these are going to be kind of self-explanatory what they do. Play and record is going to be for your backing tracks and your jam along and things like that. You're also going to use your record in conjunction with the music button for saving presets and that type of thing. We've got the music button. I just explained what that's going to do. Open is for open tunings and things like that. So when you get into doing an open tuning or a drop tuning or something like that, there's a lot of presets already custom built in here for different tunings and that type of thing. So using the open button will do that. Tap and slide I'm going to talk about in depth here a little bit, but the tap feature basically gives you kind of tapping ability on the fretboard, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. And also the slide function, again, kind of opens up the way that you can slide up and down the neck. I'm going to take just a second here and hand this off so that I can get this powered up and show you a few more things. So I'll take this second to remind you that we are taking questions at the end of this. So we'd like you to go ahead and submit your questions here on live stream or through Facebook or Twitter, and make sure you go on there and like those as well. And again, we're going to be giving away Guitar Pro LE version, which is a really great notation and tablature creation software. Works really great with the UROC guitar. And yeah, we're going to be doing that at the end of the show here, or at the end of the webinar. And basically, you just email info@urocguitar.com, and the first 100 people that mention that they saw SVH on the webinar today, will enter you in for that prize. All right, we're good to go. We are rocking. Let me just plug this back in real fast. Okay. So let me turn it back on because you got to hear the cool jam. All right, we are fired up. Okay. So now, going over the features and the functions of the buttons here. We've got a couple different things. Once you get into, let's start out with layers and presets. Basically, calling up a preset is really easy. You're just going to go up and down with the up and down buttons, and that'll scroll through the different presets. Now, each preset's already custom built with different sounds. Some of them have 2 layers of sound, a guitar layer, synth layer, or 2 guitars or 2 synths, that type of thing. And all the built-in presets are user customizable. So you can go through and change any of these presets, any combination. That's a big question that people have about layering and things like that. Now, we have the guitar layer on right now. There's also a synth layer, so if I just press that button, now I've engaged the synth layer. So now I'm going to have the guitar layer here and the synth layer here. Now in this particular preset, I've got a distorted 5th guitar. So let me just kind of... So I got that, distorted 5th, and then on the bottom, on the synth side, I actually added a... Well, this is a synth sound. I'm going to show you actually. What we're going to do, we're going to change that now. So the synth, if I press that button and I scroll down, I want to add the evil bass because that is a cool sound and blends really well with the distorted 5ths. Okay, so I scroll down, holding the synth button to 13. I let that go, and now I got the evil bass. Okay, and then one of the things I mentioned earlier was the transpose function. This particular preset has the transpose function in it. So if I push this button, see now I got, it went up. So it changed the octave. So we just transposed it. I'm going to transpose it back on, so I go back down and get that low. And now I'm going to add the guitar layer just by pressing the guitar button. It's going to turn that layer back on. And now I'm blending the two. Okay, so now I want to make one more change. I do a lot of things in drop tuning. Like I said, with this you can do custom tunings. We'll get into the control panel app on another episode and tell you how to change your custom tunings there, but you can also do it internally here, and again you can just call up one of the open tuning presets or custom tuning presets that are built in with the open function. So like I said, I use drop D a lot, so I know that if I just push open here, preset number 7 is the drop D tuning. So I just scroll to 7, let go, and now, oops, turn the volume back on. Now I'm drop tuned. Okay, so now we've drop tuned that whole preset. So the guitar layer and the synth layer are both dropped to drop D. And we've already changed the customizing of the preset, so we've changed our sound to what we want. Now, why is this music button flashing at me? Well, that's because the UROC has a really nice little reminder here to let you know that you haven't saved your preset yet. You've made a change, but you haven't saved it, and that's flashing to notify you of that. So how we can get around that, or save it, you press the music button and record, and voila. Everything's been saved. So now all the custom sounds that we've changed are saved to this preset number. The open tuning that we've done is saved to this. And when you turn this back on or turn it off and back on, your preset's going to be saved and you're all good to go. And then you can go back in and customize it, change it, go and change those sounds back to something else, that type of thing. I will also mention that the guitar layer or the synth layer can handle either or type of instrument. So say you want a 12-string acoustic guitar on your guitar layer and you want a clean strat underneath that. You can put that on the synth layer and do that as well. We'll get into this in more detail in the next episodes as well, but also you can customize the level of each of those. So you can change the volume so you can really get a perfect blend of, you know, piano and strings or whatever instruments you want to stack together and layer. So it's really customizable in that aspect. You can go through and just, you know, take every preset and layer it to your liking and then layer different types of sound. So it really gives you, again, a lot of sound capabilities just built in with the internal guitar synth module that's built into this. And with the Gen 2, the sounds have really come a long way. It's really got some great sounds in here. And I use a lot of the internal sounds often, a lot of little recordings or practices and things like that I use the UROC for, even as just a practice tool and things like that. The internal sounds are really good, and they really kind of open your mind to trying different things, and might lead you to another plugin or DAW or something like that that's a similar sound that you wouldn't have discovered before. So really dive into some of the internal sounds and things like that, because they're really good. A couple other things I just want to mention real quick. I talked about the tap function and the slide function, and I want to get into that a little bit more. Tap function, basically, if you touch the strings now, you're not getting any signal. You have to actually strum the strings down here. But if you put it in tap mode, now as soon as you touch that fretboard sensor technology, it's going to go ahead and trigger that sound. So this is a really cool feature and function, and something that really helps with a lot of the concerns and things that people have about being able to pull off certain techniques and things like that in a MIDI realm or MIDI environment. You can do things a lot differently. Like if you're going to be doing some sort of a string part or something like that that requires a real tight staccato type thing, using the tapping is really well for that. A lot of bass parts and things like that respond really well to tapping and that type of thing. And it really tracks great. Really opens up, the tapping aspect of that. There's so many really great players out there right now doing two-hand tapping and 8-finger taps and all kinds of stuff, and this really accommodates that type of thing really well with the tap function. It really, again, it just kind of opens up the creativity, kind of opens the ability of this to play more like a guitar and more like a real, string and wood instrument as opposed to a MIDI controller. It really just responds more guitar-like because of that added feature and function. So the tap mode is really cool. I definitely encourage you to check that out and try some different things with that. Then slide. Slide is another one. Now, when you don't slide, this kind of works much like a keyboard. It's kind of like playing one note in succession on a keyboard like that. When you put on slide mode, what it does is the magic inside the machine here bends the note from note to note. So as it bends, it creates that better slide capability. So you get more of that real natural kind of slide type sound. It sounds less like using a jog wheel or pitch bend, or even the whammy you can use for bending and things like that. But it basically just kind of bends the note from one to the other, giving more of a realistic slide sound and feel and that type of thing. So the tap and the slide functions, again, two built-in features that really help you use the UROC guitar in a very realistic guitar-like way. That's really, again, one of the things that that really impressed me as a recording artist and a touring guy. When I first plugged mine in and started messing around with it and things like that, the sounds were really cool, and it was cool that you could do the layers and things like that. But it really amazed me is how it felt very natural, as opposed to, I do a lot of world music and ethnic things, and trying to sit and play a flute part or a violin part on a keyboard controller is just, next to impossible to get it to really sound accurate and true. But with this, I'm already in my realm and I'm already in my comfort zone, and it really just, makes me think a little bit more like a violin player, or more like a pianist or flute player. And just play it that way, and again, really expands the creativity. So that's a little bit about the tap and the slide mode. Little nuances built in to just kind of make it a little bit more guitar-like for you. Also, I mentioned that there is a chorus and transpose function, which I showed you the transpose a little bit. Some of the presets have the chorus built in as well. How that basically works, and I just want to breeze over that really fast, and again, we'll talk more about all these, every aspect of this we'll really break open and get deep into throughout the series. But some of the presets have chorus already built into it, and when that chorus is there and that preset sound has that built in, then these functions will engage the on and off for the chorus or the transpose, which I showed you with the other when I transposed it. So a little bit, just a brief touch on chorus and transpose, and also the functionality of these buttons, which again we'll go over a lot more later. So yeah, we've kind of talked about setting up a custom preset, presets and layers and how they work and that type of thing, how to save it, dropping the tunings and that kind of thing. One last thing I'd like to mention before we kind of take a break and go into questions, I'd like to mention Fret Select. Fret Select is also another type of way to navigate around the instrument and things like that, which basically just gives you, you touch the fret instead of using the buttons and so forth to go through. So you basically, you want to scroll through different presets or change a sound or something like that, you can do it that way. So, holding the guitar button and then touching the different frets is going to give you the number of, it's going to call up the preset number that you want. So 1 through 10 is going to give you, numbers 1 through 10 and then you go down to the next string and it starts at 11 there and then goes up from there. So it's just another navigational way. We'll get into Fret Select more. I'll be really honest with you, it's something I haven't used a whole lot, so I like to learn a little bit more about it myself even, and I know that there's a lot of really cool things that you can do, and I've seen some guys like whiz through on videos and stuff like that on YouTube, like whiz through changing sounds and presets and all that using Fret Select and buttons down here and everything else. So yeah, if you're savvy to the technology, there's so many things that you can do with this, from a simple level all the way up to a really complex, professional level. There's so many things that you can do with the UROC guitar. And it really, again, it's, we gave you a brief overview today, but one of the main points that I'd like to drive home is that, again, it really puts the power of keyboards in a guitar player's hand, which is really opens up the sound spectrum, opens up your ability to really do some different and unique things. And also, look at the fact that, the technology, as I've explained, has come a long way. It's really evolved and it's grown, and it's gotten a little bit less expensive in some aspects and things like that, but it's been really difficult over the years, and that's one of the challenges, is to manufacture something on a mass level that really has great quality and sound and playability and all that type of thing. And the UROC guitar has really addressed all that, and it really is a great playing guitar, great playing MIDI controller, great sounding unit, and for the price point that it's at, it's unbelievable and something you should definitely check out if you don't own one already. If you're a guitar player and you do any kind of recording or any kind of MIDI work at all, you should definitely have one of these. If you travel a lot, that type of thing, great travel guitar. Again, you can, I didn't mention this yet, but you can snap the neck right off, put that in your backpack or suitcase, and you're on your way. So great for all that type of thing. I have even plugged mine into my car stereo and jammed through my car stereo during Carmageddon 405 stop traffic. So I don't recommend playing and driving, but if you're stopped, go for it. All right, so that's a little overview of the UROC Guitar Gen 2. We're going to go into some questions and things like that. So we've got some questions here. If you want to try to throw in your last minute questions, again, pop them on live stream, Facebook or Twitter. Be sure to go on the Facebook and Twitter pages, like us, follow us, and yeah, keep in touch with what we got going on. We're going to be doing a lot more in this series, and we really appreciate you guys being here and being a part of it. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We're going to take a 20-30 second break here just to pull up the questions, and then we're going to go through all your questions. So don't go anywhere, hang tight, and we're going to get to your questions now. All right, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. We are back, and again, we're going over the URock Guitar Gen 2. This is our first webinar, and again, we really appreciate everybody's participation. We're getting a lot of really great questions, and we're going to dive into those. I have to make one quick correction, which I think is probably going to put a smile on a lot of people's faces. We're actually giving away, it's not a contest to give away a copy of Guitar Pro. It's actually the first 100 people that email us and say they saw the webinar get Guitar Pro 6 Lite for free. So we're actually giving away 100 copies of it. So I was way off on that one. So that's a good thing. And we're going to continue to do that on the next webinar, and throughout the series we're also going to have more giveaways and things like that. So if you're not one of the first 100, don't fret. Just tune in next time and we'll get you the next time, hopefully. All right. So moving on, we're going to dive into some of the questions here. First question on deck here is from MIDI Guitar. Why does the URock guitar not play in tune or pitch in the organ number 12? Does anyone understand this? I'm curious if you have the Gen 1 or the Gen 2. That would be something that would kind of clarify a little bit for us. The Gen 2 is 12. 12 is the overdrive, so I don't know if it's the type of sound or the preset that you're going for, the specific organ. Okay, I see here you have the Gen 1. Okay, the sound of the organ's number 12, beautiful but out of tune. You have the Gen 1. Okay, we'll review the sound and we'll see if there's some issues with that. I don't have any experience with that myself to know. I have a Gen 1. I haven't played it in a long time, ever since I got the Gen 2. So out of memory, I don't really recall that there being a pitch issue with that. But we'll definitely look into that and see what we can do for you there. And if I get any more insight on that before the end of this, I'll pass that along to you. Okay, next question is from Bruce Burt. Says, my first URock guitar had a very stiff velocity curve and I sold it immediately. Have the new models been improved in that aspect? Yeah, I mean, definitely. We've definitely made a lot of changes to the pickup system. The Gen 2 provides improved dynamics and sensitivity and that type of thing. Additionally, there are 7 different velocity curves in the YRG that can be used to adjust to your playing style. So again, and these are things that we'll cover in depth in the next few seminars or webinars, where we'll go over, velocity curve, sensitivity, crosstalk filter, all the different things that are built in to help customize it to your playing style and technique. And it's a really important point to bring up, because you really do have to customize it for your own playing and that type of thing. So yes, that's been greatly improved on the Gen 2 over the Gen 1. Also, you're asking where you can buy these. There's several online stores. Guitar Center has them. There's all kinds of different places that you can pick these up. They're pretty readily available a lot of places. So if you have a question or you need a specific dealer or need to find something like that, you can always contact sales, or you can email info@urockguitar.com, and we'll be glad to try to point you into direction of one towards your area. Let's see. Also, we mentioned in the promo something about playing to notation. What do we need for that? He says, I use Finale already. Do I just set up Finale to respond to the URock guitar? Yes, you can definitely do that. Also, if you want to discriminate between strings, make sure to set the guitar in MIDI mode, 19. You want to have a MIDI mode or channel 19. This puts each string on a different MIDI channel, gives you a lot more connectivity. And this is something, again, I'll go over a lot in a future episode, because I use the MIDI a lot. I basically use it this way. And I've found with a lot of certain sounds and presets and VSTs and plugins, changing the MIDI channel can really greatly improve just the connectivity between the device and the DAW or VST that you're using. Okay, so that's who do I email to be one of the first 100 to get Guitar Pro 6? info@urockguitar.com. So go ahead and log on to, or email info@urockguitar.com. Mention that you are watching the webinar, that you saw the webinar, and go ahead and do that, and we'll hook you up. All right, let me scroll down here to the next question. Could, let's see. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay. I'm going to try to say this correctly. Mr. Perlish Cells. Mr. Perlish Cells. Good morning, sir. Gen 1, extreme lag guitar. I try to record with MIDI on Forte, very laggy. Let's see. Usually lag is a system setup problem. The technology doesn't have a lag, but there should you should contact customer support and put in a ticket if you feel that there's really lag. Customer service here is impeccable. They work really hard to try to resolve any kind of issues, troubleshoot any kind of problem that you may have, and it really may just be a system issue. Again, when you're working in a MIDI environment, the device or the DAW or VST or sound module is just really basically getting the signal that's triggered from the controller, and a lot of times if there's a latency issue or some sort of connectivity issue or something like that, 99% of the time it's within the software. Some sort of adjustment needs to be made. For instance, I use Reason a lot, propeller head Reason. I have a really old version, 2.5, and sometimes I'll have a little connectivity weirdness. It's just when I plug it in, it's not really plug and play, and I have to go in and kind of reroute the MIDI channel and things like that. I always have to select channel 19 on the MIDI channel for the UROC, and it fixes everything, and you got great connectivity. So that would be something to kind of take into consideration and look at there. Let's see. Also, let's see. Usually ASO1 for all is the best driver for Windows. Macs are pretty good without any additional drivers. So that just a little point there about the lag. Oh, I guess it's AISO for all. Sorry about that. And then how's the lag time for the newest models for recording on the computer? The latency is really low. It's very insignificant compared to the latency of the computer system. We're faster than any keyboard controller out there, really. Try using a 5-pin MIDI jack directly to a hardware synth or module, and you'll get a faster response, or the fastest response. So yeah, a lot of times things like that, with regards, again, it's kind of the same thing I mentioned. When you experience lag or latency or something like that in a VST or DAW or something like that, it's usually a setting within the program that can be tweaked or adjusted a little bit to kind of help increase the velocity and things like that. You have all these different velocity settings and adjustments that you can do within the UROC itself, but then you got to keep in mind that most programs have all those little adjustments and settings too, and a lot of times they're going to just default to what they are, and you might have to adjust them to get a little better performance. Okay, so Buzz Terrier, why would you not have slide on by default? That's a good question, and I guess because my particular answer would be because you want the ability to use it or not use it, and you can really do different things with it. It's kind of an accessory to aiding that real feel. A little more official answer, because we're a MIDI controller and we need to take into account that external synths modules, that they are not all configured for the same pitch bend range by default and that type of thing. So we want to make sure that it doesn't slide to an incorrect pitch or something like that by default. So again, kind of falls in line with customizing where you're using it and things like that, and how the two connect will have a lot of effect there. So, and same thing with tap mode, because I kind of thought that when I initially got it, I said, well, tap mode is so cool, why wouldn't you use tap mode all the time? And you don't always necessarily want a sound to trigger as soon as you touch the string. With regards to a regular steel string and wood guitar, you put your hands on the fretboard, it doesn't necessarily make a noise unless you're doing a hammer-on, unless you're really doing that technique and striking it a little harder. Just putting your hand on the frets wouldn't really make a sound. So again, keeping in keeping everything as realistic as possible for the guitar player feel. I think having the tap and the slide separated and not in there by default. But again, you can customize those and save those settings on any preset or any sound that you have, and then by default your preset will be set to that. Okay, what are the major differences? Zero Frost asks, what are the major differences between Gen 1 and Gen 2? Well, Gen 2 has an updated pickup system. It improves the sensitivity and consistency of the system. There's a lot of new sounds, which I mentioned before, a lot of new really enhanced and upgraded sounds that really sound great. Built-in chorus for internal sounds, improved mapping to MIDI controller numbers, improved tracking parameters, Ableton surface control. It's got a layering system built in. A lot more information on the website under the products tab. If you go there, it'll basically tell you all the upgrades and differences between Gen 1 and all the new things that are in Gen 2. But yeah, there's a lot more information there, and it's definitely an upgrade in terms of just the overall playability and connectivity. It definitely responds a little bit more like I think what a lot of you folks have been asking for in regards to Gen 1, looking to move forward into Gen 2. Okay, Mike asks, is there a way to flash the ROM to upgrade from Gen 1 to the current model? We currently do not have an upgrade path from Gen 1 to Gen 2, but the latest Gen 1 firmware has a lot of features and updates that were not in the original release. So if you have a Gen 1 and you go in there and put in the latest firmware, you're definitely going to see some improvement there. We highly recommend that you update the software, log on to urockguitar.com to do that, and that'll give you the features there that have been added into the newer firmware of the Gen 1. Let's see, I'm looking for the YRG control panel, which I had previously downloaded but can't find it on my hard drive. Can you please provide a link for the Windows software for YRG Gen 1? This is on our website for registered users. If you can't get it, you can send an email to info@urockguitar.com and we'll get you the link. So yeah. If you're a registered user, you should be able to find that link. So you can just go to urockguitar.com, register, and go into the software download panel there, and that'll give you that ability. Or you can just email info@urockguitar.com, and we'll send you the link. Okay. Mr. Parrish Sells asks again, can we trade in our Gen 1 for the Gen 2? And this is a question that I see a lot on the forums, and there's a lot of talk about. We do offer a loyalty program that allows you to send in your Gen 1 guitar for a discount off of the Gen 2. You do need a proof of purchase for the Gen 1 in order to qualify for the 20% discount. For more info on that, contact info@urockguitar.com, and they'll give you details on that. And yeah, so that's where that stands. Chris S., I have a Gen 1. I want to set up a custom tuning to GCEA ukulele. Can't get the G up an octave. You should probably email support on this one. It should be doable with custom tunings, but they'd like to check this in-house and kind of try that and see if they can really replicate that ukulele tuning for you. So yeah, let us check that out. Please email, and we'll at the support. Please email support, and we'll help you out there. Let's see. Okay, I'd like to just kind of take this second to say, again, thank you so much for your support. We sent out a mailer, I think a month or so ago, and asked for some questions and some insight on the things that you guys would like covered. We got a really great response, and we really appreciate it. And again, it's really a pleasure for me to be a part of this. I discovered the U-Rock guitar about 2 years ago, and it's really changed a lot for me in terms of my approach as a recording artist. and an engineer and producer, that type of thing. And it's really just opened a lot of doors for me, and as an artist and as someone who's passionate about creative expression, it's really an honor to be able to kind of fly the flag for UROC, and to be an artist for them, and to be able to be a clinician and present these types of things to you guys. So I appreciate your support, and I appreciate your willingness to listen to me yap for a while, and we appreciate it. And just keep the questions coming in. I'm also really active on the forum, so if you go to the UROC Guitar forum, you'll see me there under SVH. If you have any questions, you can personal message, private message me, or send something up through the forum. There's a lot of really great information there, and really something that you guys should tap into, because there's a lot of great resources there, and a lot of really creative things that people are doing with their instrument. I'm always kind of amazed at how extensive people are taking their creativity with this thing, and it's really inspiring. So really great thing. Any suggestions that you have for future topics, for future webinars, that type of thing, please keep them coming in through the forum, through Facebook, through Twitter, through email, that type of thing. Email us at info@urocguitar.com, and again, we'll be more than happy to go through and answer your questions and try to really customize these webinars so that you get the best information that you can. And lastly, I want to just remind you again that if you haven't already done so, go on to your email box there and type in info@urocguitar.com. Let us know that you saw the webinar, and the first 100 people will get a copy of Guitar Pro 6 Lite. And that is, again, a really great transcription software that you can use. Actually, if you get on our YouTube page, you'll see a little demo video that I did of it. Really short, brief introduction, just kind of showing you how it connects and that type of thing. But a really great, really cool product that really pairs well with the UROC guitar. So check it out. And again, we really appreciate your attendance, and let us know what you think. Keep the feedback coming in, and get out there and create and have fun with your expression of music. And yeah, open your mind to some new tools and things out there that are available, and check out the UROC guitar and enjoy. All right, and we'll see you next time. Keep tabs on the website and the forums, Facebook, Twitter. We'll make an announcement here shortly about when the next webinar is going to be. And again, we thank you very much.